Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Brian Quaranta. He is president and founder of Secure Money Advisors, as well as joined by Neil Major, senior investment advisor. Brian, how are you today?
Cynthia, I am great. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Good to be here.
Good. Neil, how are you?
I'm well, Cynthia. How are you today?
Doing very, very well. Thank you so much. And how's everything going?
Good. Good to see you.
Good, good, good. Well, gentlemen, I know that we have such an exciting show today. Obviously, every week that we're together, we talk about such an important topic. Planning properly for retirement, and most importantly, making sure that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So, Brian, right out of the gate, let's talk about what does the right track really mean in regards to retirement?
Well, not running out of money, most importantly.
Okay.
Okay, because a lot of people are going to be challenged with trying to generate some type of monthly income for themselves, and the biggest fear for most people is running out of money. So number one, having a plan that is designed not to run out of money, even when we have market volatility. Okay. And we can talk about that a little bit more. Having a good tax strategy, right? Making sure that when you are retired, you're paying the least amount of tax as possible, which can be challenging to do without proper planning, because most people have retirement accounts that they're putting money into that are tax deferred, but when they pull the money out, they got to pay taxes on it. And for most people, they're going to have to pull money out of the accounts, whether they want to or not, because we've got all these things called required minimum distributions, where the IRS forces you to take the money and all kinds of stuff. Number three is having the proper investment mix in your retirement years, making sure that you have some downside protection should the markets become volatile. And that's a really key area for most retirees, because most retirees cannot afford to lose a large amount of money because they just don't have the time to recover like they did during their working years. And of course, you know, as you get older, there's a possibility of a health event taking place, which you got to have ways to pay for that. And then, of course, when the good Lord decides to take you home, you certainly want to make sure that your family's going to be the largest beneficiary of your money and not the IRS, and that's where good estate planning comes in. And this is what we talk about all the time on the show, Cynthia, right?
Yeah.
We talk about those 5 key areas where it's income, taxes, investments, healthcare, and your estate planning. And that is what it means to be on the right track, having all 5 key areas taken care of.
Brian, thank you so much. Neil, I should ask you, what are some common things that would make people derail from being on the right track? What are you seeing most often?
Well, what I see most often really is just not having a plan, you know, and people aren't doing the little things that are required, because I always say the little mistakes cause big headaches down the line. And what we see is people come in for second opinions because they've watched the television show, or they listen to the radio show, or they come to one of our educational events, come in for a second opinion. They've worked with their person for a long, long time, and they feel like they have a plan, but there's some sort of something uncomfortable about the situation that brought them into our office. And what we identify is they really don't have a plan. I mean, they have investments, which is great, but no strategy or no plan. And so when you just focus on the investment planning aspect of it, that's when you derail the right track, right? Because you haven't thought about all the things that Brian just mentioned. And most oftentimes those people, the reason that they're in, they really have no peace of mind either, because they haven't developed an actual plan.
Yeah, the biggest thing that can derail somebody is market volatility. Especially in retirement. During your working years, it's not an issue, because you're probably not going to need the money during your working years, but eventually people need the money that they've saved for retirement. That's why it's called retirement dollars.
Exactly, exactly.
And again, the fundamental problem is that 401ks are the popular way of saving for retirement. You know, it used to be the pension, but that doesn't exist anymore. So people are required to manage their own retirement and figure out how they're going to get the income that they need on a monthly basis. And without proper protection of those assets, if the market doesn't cooperate and the market's going down and people are taking money out, now they have a higher probability of running out of money. So those are the things that really can derail somebody very, very quickly. And if you don't think it can happen to you, think about the people that retired in 2007, 2008. You know, they retired and they're going into retirement. They think everything's going to be fine. And then we have, you know, the financial downturn and they lose 40-50% of their money. And I know people that had to go back to work because of that.
Yeah.
They would come into my office and say, I was retired, but the firm that I was with was taking too much risk and I lost half my money, or I lost 40% of my money, and I had to go back to work, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to retire. A lot of those people also had to delay retirement. So if you didn't come out of retirement, you had to delay retirement. And so at Secure Money Advisors, we want to build a plan that gets you retired and keeps you retired.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
We don't want to be coming back to you in 5 years and say, hey, sorry, the plan didn't work.
Yeah.
So these are the important things you got to focus on.
What do you tell people that hear, don't worry about it, it's just a paper loss?
Yeah. Well, first off, does it feel like a paper loss?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to some degree it is, okay? But here's where it's not a paper loss. So, we all need money in the market, okay? But you can't have 100% of your money in the market during retirement, because obviously if you need to take money from those accounts and the market's down, now it's going to feel like more than a paper loss, because now you're actually pulling money out of your account when the market's down, so you're locking into the loss, and then of course you're compounding the loss, right?
Yeah.
But it is essentially a paper loss should you have time for that portfolio to grow.
Okay.
Meaning, if the market becomes a little bit volatile and, you have some of your money in the market and you have some of your money in a protected account, and your market account, let's say, goes from 500,000 down to 450,000, I'm not concerned about that as long as you have a sum of money that's been protected, because that market account will have plenty of time to recover.
Yeah.
And so therefore it truly does, by definition, become a paper loss, because we're not having to use that money yet. Right?
Yeah.
It becomes long-term money. And that's the difference, because most people try to retire. They try to retire with 100% of their money in the market. Then it becomes volatile. Then they start pulling money out. And now it gets really messy. And now they're creating, they're compounding losses by pulling money out. And this becomes very dangerous, because there's a high probability of failure then with the plan. And there's a high probability that they may run out of money before they die, which is not a good thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and to Brian's point, I just recently had a guy come in, him and his wife, for a second opinion. Okay. And he just recently retired. He needs $2,000 a month from his savings. He has $500,000 in savings. Well, his first month into retirement, he's down $60,000.
Wow.
Right? And what he says to me is, well, I'm in it for the long haul. I said, sir, I disagree. I mean, because to Brian's point, he's starting to take income, and he never developed a strategy. All of his money was kept in the market to his broker's advice, and now it's become very real. He no longer has the time for that money to come back. So he's locked in that loss. Yeah,
not only that, but he's no longer contributing to the account, right? So, a lot of times before people retire, they're typically in some type of employer plan, like a 401k, and so they're contributing, and they're also getting contributions from their employer, right? And that works really well, especially when markets are volatile, because if markets are down, in this case, the guy's down 60 grand, if he wasn't pulling money out of the account and he was still working, that wouldn't be an issue, because he would still be buying in, to lower market levels and offsetting the losses by picking up shares at lower prices. Yeah. Right? But now he has no money going in. He has money coming out, and on top of it, he's pulling it out when the market is down.
Yeah, he needs the income, right?
And all you got to do is run a basic math model, and you can figure out that when you do that, there's a high probability of failure. And that's what people need to understand. And what we try to really communicate and educate people on is that the money that you have saved for retirement, that is not money that you get a second chance with.
Right.
When you retire, it is not a dress rehearsal. You cannot get a redo on this thing. So the 401ks, the 403bs, the retirement savings accounts that we have today, they are the pensions of the past. Yeah. They need to be treated that way. You think about the pensions of the past, nobody had to worry about that pension running out of money, because it was being handled, and as long as you were alive, it was guaranteed to pay you for the rest of your life. And if you died, it probably even paid your spouse for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So people had no pressure of worrying about the performance of that account, the market volatility, because it was being done for them. Mm-hmm. Now, they're basically given the duties of having to now build their own pensions, and yet they're doing it trying to roll the dice in the market, which makes no sense.
Wow. Well, Brian, I know that you and Neil have a very special offer to present to the viewers at home today. Let's talk about what that is and then open the phone line.
Sure. Our Right Track Retirement Review, folks, was truly designed with you in mind to help get you on the right track. If you've ever wondered to yourself, am I doing the right things? Do I have the right investment mix? Am I maximizing my returns? Am I paying the least amount in taxes as possible? This Right Track Retirement Review will help you identify this and help determine whether or not you're on the right track. And I always say, if you're not on the right track, when would be a good time to know? So for the next 10 callers who call in right now, we are going to give you a complimentary Right Track Retirement Review. You're going to come into the office. We're going to spend about 45 minutes to an hour with you, and you're going to get a lot of information about what it means to be on the right track. Our job is to provide you with as much clarity and confidence going into retirement as we possibly can. But you got to do your part. You've got to schedule the appointment. So pick up the phone and call 1-888-382-1298 and schedule your Right Track Retirement Review today.
Brian, thank you so much. Neil, thank you so much. To the viewers at home, the phone number call is on your screen. That number is 888-382-1298. As Brian and Neil have mentioned, if you're not on the right track, wouldn't you want to know today? This is the perfect opportunity for you to call in and schedule that appointment to the first 10 callers only. Again, 888-382-1298. We have to take a very short commercial break, but when we come back, I have so much more with Brian and Neil, so stay tuned.
See, everybody can tell you how to invest your money. There's not a lot of people out there and a lot of firms that can teach you how to use your money. Most people also tell you that they're scared. And the reason they're scared is because they're afraid of running out of money.
The last thing you want to do is have a really good job into your 60s, retire, and be looking for work again in your late 70s.
The average person might say, well, a good portfolio would be a good mix of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. No, 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 no. A good portfolio is all designed around the 5 key areas: income, taxes, investments, healthcare, and legacy planning.
We're not just product pickers here. What we do best here is we build retirement plans.
9 out of 10 people, when they walk through the door, would ask us, we just want to know if we're on the right track. And I always say, if you're not on the right track, when would be a good time to know it? Probably now.
People, can actually see a vision once we start to really build out their plan.
This is about you. If you're not getting what you need and you feel that when you walk out of the advisor's office, it's time to get a second opinion. And you can't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first opinion. The difference at Secure Money Advisors, as a fiduciary firm, we help you manage the risk, build the income, and give you the retirement you dreamed of.
And welcome back to On the Money with Secure Money. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Brian Quaranta. He is president and founder of Secure Money Advisors, as well as joined by Neil Majors, senior investment advisor. Gentlemen, a great show that we're having, talking, of course, about the stock market and investments, if you will. And I wanted to ask a question. Obviously, in the past, people talked about bonds being such a safe investment tool, if you will. And there was something called the 60-40 rule. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Brian, let me start with you. Is that still in effect today?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were probably referring more to the rule of 100 there, of how you get to that 60-40.
Okay.
They would always say take a 100 minus your age. The rule of 100 was just basically take 100 minus your age. Why 100? Because that's typically was the life expectancy number that they were using to calculate risk.
Okay.
So you take 100 minus your age. Let's say you're 60. It equals 40. 100 minus 60 is 40. And they would say that your age is what you should really be putting in a safer investment. So for the longest time, it was bonds. We have a chart at the office that showed what bonds were paying.
Yeah,
and the reason why it worked so well was back in the 90s, right?
Yeah, the yields were like 8.5%. Right?
On bonds, which were really good.
Yeah, so as you get closer to retirement, you want to take some equities and move them to bonds for a safer, more conservative investment.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And now, since 2008, the average bond yield's about 3.3%.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
significantly down.
It might even be a little bit lower. I think it's like 2.8, somewhere around there. But regardless, it's very low,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
So what would happen is when they would go to this 60-40 split back then, in the early 90s, mid 90s, I mean, you could put money into bonds because it made sense. What 8.5, 9%, somewhere around there. Now you're going all the way to 3%, but the problem with the bond market is that you still assume the risk of the bond,
Sure.
right? And I don't think a lot of people understand that. There was a lady I know you had come in the other day that had some bonds, and you were explaining the seesaw to her, right?
Yeah, so, let's just say, for example, you had $1 million, right?
Okay.
Invested in bonds, and the yield on that was 3%. So every year you're going to get guaranteed $30,000 of interest income from that bond. Well, let's say that you needed $60,000 to live off of, right?
Okay.
So there's a delta there, $30,000. Well, in order to get the additional income that you would need, you're going to have to sell off some of your bond positions, right? Well, the problem is bonds carry interest rate risk. As interest rates go up, bond prices go down, right? So you're going to be selling your bond at a loss if you need additional income. So that's the challenge in utilizing bonds today, is they're not a great source to generate cash flow from.
Sure.
Now, when they were yielding 8.5%, I'll take that risk, right?
I'll take that risk, right.
I'll sell
yeah.
off some bonds when I need to, but at 3%, it's a totally different ballgame.
Not only that, but when you were buying bonds at 8%, most likely interest rates were going to go down, which meant your bond prices were going to go up. So your account balance, your portfolio go up. We're at all-time lows with interest rates. So, you think about the probability of your bond pricing going down, meaning you losing money in your portfolio, the probability is high because interest rates only really have one way to go. And if they go up, your bonds are losing money. And now this becomes the same problem that you have with the stock market, right? You're pulling money out when the market's down, but yet you think you're going into a safer investment. What we have found and what research has shown is that the alternative to the bond market right now is a good annuity.
Okay.
And annuities are becoming more and more popular in retirement planning for good reason. I personally own them myself, but they are an alternative to bonds because we can still get maybe a 4 to 6% rate of return in a good annuity that still participates in market growth, but we can avoid all losses. So we're actually shifting the risk of principal. We're shifting that to the insurance company, so we no longer have the concern of losing principal. But we're also shifting the interest rate risk, meaning we're no longer impacted if interest rates go up in a bond. We're losing money. We no longer have that in a fixed annuity, typically a fixed indexed annuity.
Okay.
And that's kind of becoming the new way of having a safer position.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they act a lot like a bond too. Bonds have maturities on them, meaning during the bond maturity period, you can sometimes only take interest. Same thing with annuities. They've got a little bit of a maturity period, but they're still not all annuities, because they're not all created equal. There's some really bad ones, but there's really great ones out there too. But they can provide a really great source of cash flow as you're starting to build out the plan. And that's all you're trying to do, is build a bridge. We always call it building an income bridge, meaning, what we want to try to do is set enough money aside in your first phase of retirement to get maybe 15 to 20 years worth of cash flow from a safe and guaranteed account. Why is that important? Because if we can get 15 to 20 years of safe cash flow, then that means our risk money has 15 to 20 years to grow. And we all know, because it works, as long as you give your risk money time, we're going to be completely okay. And that's why with our clients, we're not concerned about market volatility. So when the market goes down, our portfolios do lose money, but because of the way we build out the model itself, I'm not concerned about that money losing, because I don't need it for a very long period of time. Okay. And then, of course, what happens over time is as that risk money increases in value, you can actually pull a little bit of the profits, right, off of there, the growth off of there, and you can bring it over to here and refill this bucket over here. And it works really, really, really well.
And what I've noticed, Brian, and you probably have noticed this as well, is I think the consumer is educating themselves on what the different alternatives are at this point. 5, 6 years ago, when we talked about annuities to a potential client, it was like, oh, I've heard bad things about them.
Right.
Yes.
Now it's like, yes, I do understand that is the right investment for my safe part of the portfolio. So I think the consumer's mind has really changed around thinking and understanding that the annuity, as far as safe money goes, is truly the best available option currently.
Yeah, and our position as a fiduciary is we've got to do what's in the client's best interest. So when we're looking at the portfolio and we're saying, okay, this individual's 65 years old, They have no pension. They need $25,000, $30,000 a year. What's the safest approach that I can take in generating this income to give the client the highest probability of success with their portfolio to not only grow it, but also never to run out of money? And it leads us to these financial products. All financial products have a purpose, right? But the question is, what problems are we trying to solve, right? And the purpose of the client's money truly determines how we place that money and what financial products we use.
Right.
Okay, all right, perfect. Well, Brian and Neil, I would love to reopen the phone lines. What do you think? Great time?
Yeah, folks, the Right Track retirement system truly was designed with you in mind. Most people will always ask us, are we on the right track? Are we doing the right things? I always say, if you're not on the right track, when would you want to know? Are you getting the best rate of return that you can? Are you taking the least amount of risk as possible? Are you maximizing your tax savings? If you're not sure, take advantage of the Right Track Retirement Review. All you have to do is call us today. For the next 10 callers, we're going to give it out complimentary, but you need to do your part. Call 1-888-382-1298 and schedule with us today.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. To the viewers at home, the phone number to call is once again on your screen. That number is 888-382-1298. We understand that you've worked your entire life to get the retirement years, and you deserve to have the retirement of your dreams. As Brian and Neil have mentioned, if you're not on the right track, when is the right time to know that? You probably want to know today. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call in 888-382-1298. We have to take a very short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. I have so much more with Brian and Neil the minute we return.
If I could help you increase your income, if I could help you pay less taxes, if I could help you potentially maximize the returns of your investments while reducing risk, reducing fees, if I could help you prepare for a health event, or more importantly, when the good Lord decides to take you home, to make sure that the money you've accumulated over your lifetime goes to your family and to your charities rather than the IRS, would that be worth the time to come in and get a second opinion?
And welcome back to On the Money with Secure Money. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. I'm joined today by Brian Quaranta. He is president and founder of Secure Money Advisors, as well as joined by Neil Majors, senior investment advisor. Gentlemen, a wonderful show that we're having today, and I love talking about the stock market, how bonds play into that, the rule of 100, if you will. We had a great question, actually, from a caller, and if you don't mind, I'd love to spend some time on that. Said, Brian and Neil, I have a question for both of you. How do you help quantify someone's risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me tell you the old way of quantifying versus the new way. Okay. The flip phone way versus the smartphone way. The old way was you would have a conversation with a client about how they felt about risk. And then you would determine based on that conversation whether or not they would belong in a conservative portfolio, a moderately aggressive, or an aggressive portfolio, okay, based on that conversation.
Okay.
But a lot of times when people say to an advisor, I'm conservative, when we look at the portfolios, we actually don't see a conservative portfolio. We actually see a risky portfolio. And the way that we're able to quantify that today is through the use of a pretty good software program that we use that really has given us some cutting-edge advantages at our office, being able to show people based on a number how much risk that they're taking. And I know you did
I think you know, people want, if they're going to go to somebody for a second opinion, right? They don't want some other advisor's opinion. They want real data.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's what's so helpful about this software program that we're able to utilize, is we're able to provide them real data and analysis on what they're currently doing. So it's a really, really great tool, and it basically lists out, you know, the type of risk they're taking, the efficiency of the portfolio, the underlying investment fees, 3-year returns, 5-year returns, portfolio drawdown. So it's just a really, really great tool to give somebody a true second opinion.
Yeah.
Now, I just had a guy last week come in, and he wanted the second opinion, had been with his advisor for a long, long time. And what we identified was he was taking the same amount of risk as the S&P 500. Okay, so, you know, and that was okay for him, but he definitely wanted to start to reduce his risk. He was about 10 years from retirement. Now, the numbers should match up, right? If you're going to take the same amount of risk as the S&P 500, you should have a similar rate of return, correct?
Absolutely.
So, you know, when I ran the numbers, his 5-year return on that was about 12.5%, okay? The S&P 500 during that same period of time did about 18%. So the efficiency of his portfolio was pretty poor for the amount of risk that he was taking. Wouldn't you agree? And
Yeah,
to be able to show him that data, just was, really soothing to understand and see that maybe his guy, the fact that probably his biggest problem was he didn't have a plan built, but now he's seeing the inefficiencies of his portfolio as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because when you lay out the black and white facts for people, they can make informed decisions.
Sure.
Right, and that's the one thing that we really like about our approach at Secure Money Advisors is, even though we say come on in for a second opinion, we're not giving you our opinion. Right, the data is the data.
Right.
So now it's like, well, do you want A or B? A has a risk score of 75 with a return of 5%, or portfolio B has a risk score of 40 with a return of 10%. So if I can take less risk and get a higher rate of return, you probably want to go for that portfolio versus the other one. But until this software program came out, there was no way to quantify risk in a very black and white method like we are now. And of course, that really helps people a lot, because number one, at our office, we're not there to sell anything. We're truly there to help solve a problem. So this software puts us in that position of problem solver, for us to be able to say, here's where you are, here's what you could have. Right? And a lot of people, it doesn't take them very long to make the decision, my gosh, I had no idea that this was happening, and I should be getting this based on what I'm trying to do. It just makes sense for me to go from here to here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're both so passionate about designing a customized plan for each client that comes in. So, Brian, I have to ask you, we only have a minute and a half left of the show. That customizable plan, is it adjustable as life changes to your client?
Yeah, we always say that it's a living document, right?
Okay.
And because life does change, there's ebbs and flows of life, and that's the really nice thing about having a real written plan.
Yeah.
And when we build out these models, it's great, because we'll get phone calls throughout the year. We're looking at buying a house, and we want to take X amount of money out of our portfolio. Is that going to be a problem? Is that going to cause us a problem down the road? Once we build your model, I'm able to plug these scenarios in and determine the risk of you making a certain decision. Now what we become is a financial sounding board, right? We become the family's CFO, and now it gives the family a lot of confidence to go do the things that they want to do, whether that be gifting money to kids, taking everybody on vacation, buying a vacation home, whatever it might be, they do it with confidence. And that's what our Right Track retirement system is all about, giving you clarity and, more importantly, giving you confidence to move forward in retirement and enjoy that time that you have. So for the next 10 callers who call in right now, we are going to give you a complimentary Right Track retirement review. Remember, though, you got to do your part. Pick up the phone, call us today. Don't procrastinate on this. Call 1-888-382-1298 and schedule with us today.
Brian, thank you so much. Neil, thank you so much. To the viewers at home, most specifically, thank you for spending time with us. That number is 888-382-1298. We'll see you back 1 week from today. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and thank you for watching.